The night my parents told me to leave the house, the walls felt like they were shrinking. Their words were sharp, final, and heavy with disappointment. I didn't argue much. Sometimes silence is louder than shouting. I packed a small bag, stepped outside, and felt the world suddenly become very big and very cold. I had no plan, no money of my own, and nowhere certain to go. Pride kept me from calling friends. Fear kept me moving. As I walked through the quiet streets, memories chased me. My childhood room, my mother's worried eyes, my father's hard silence. I wasn't angry as much as I was numb. I kept thinking, this can't be how it ends. That's when I remembered my grandfather. He had passed away years ago, but his presence never really left me. He was the only one who listened without judging, who believed mistakes were lessons, not life sentences. While cleaning his old cupboard months earlier, I had found an old card tucked inside a book. He had once told me, half jokingly, one day, this might save you. I never thought about it again. Until that night. The next morning, hungry and exhausted, I walked into a bank branch I had passed 100 times before. The building looked intimidating, all glass and quiet authority. My hands shook as I approached the counter. I told myself I would just ask a simple question, nothing more. When I handed the card over, I expected confusion, maybe rejection. What I didn't expect was the bank manager's face. He took the card, glanced at it, and then looked at me again, slower this time. His smile disappeared. The air between us changed. He stood up without a word and asked me to wait. Other customers watched, curious. My heart began to race. I thought I had made a terrible mistake. Minutes felt like hours. The manager returned, not alone, and invited me into his office. His tone was careful, almost respectful. He asked about my grandfather, using his full name. I nodded, surprised. The manager took a deep breath and said, "Do you know what this card represents?" I shook my head. He explained that my grandfather had been more than just an ordinary man. Decades ago, he had helped the bank during a critical time, offering support and trust when very few did. In return, the bank had created a special account, one that wasn't about wealth alone, but about legacy. The card wasn't meant for everyday use. It was meant for emergencies, for moments when life cornered you. The manager froze earlier because he hadn't seen that card in years. Most employees had only heard stories about it. I sat there, stunned. The man I knew as gentle and quiet had carried a history I never imagined. The manager told me the account was legally mine now, left specifically for me. Not because I was perfect, but because my grandfather believed I would need help finding my way. Tears came before I could stop them. Not because of the money, but because someone, somewhere, had planned for my worst day. The bank didn't turn my life into a fairy tale overnight. It gave me something more valuable, time. Time to breathe, to think, to stand on my own feet. I rented a small room, enrolled in a course I had always wanted to study, and started working part-time. Every step felt earned. Weeks later, I thought about my parents. I didn't rush back. Healing doesn't work that way. But I wrote them a letter. Not blaming, not begging. Just honest. I told them I was trying to become better, not to prove them wrong, but to prove my grandfather right. That old card taught me a lesson deeper than money ever could. Life can break you, even through the hands of people you love. But sometimes, hope is hidden in places you least expect, left there quietly by someone who believed in you long before you believed in yourself. And sometimes, when the world pushes you out the door, it's not the end. It's the beginning of finding out who you really are. The days after that meeting at the bank felt unreal, like I was living inside someone else's story. I kept replaying the manager's words in my head, trying to connect them with the grandfather I remembered, the man who smelled of old books and tea, who fixed broken chairs instead of throwing them away, who believed patience could solve almost anything. I realized then how little we truly know about the people who quietly shape our lives. I moved into a small rented room on the edge of the city. It wasn't much. One window, a narrow bed, and a desk with scratches from previous lives. But it was mine. For the first time, I was completely responsible for myself. That freedom was exciting and terrifying at the same time. There was no one to blame now, no one to lean on by default. Every decision mattered. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Morning sunlight felt different when it entered a space you earned on your own. I made simple breakfasts, learned to budget, and wrote down goals I had never dared to say out loud before. Small things, like finishing a book or walking into a job interview without fear, felt like victories. The course I enrolled in challenged me more than I expected. There were moments when I doubted myself, when that old voice returned, whispering that I wasn't good enough, that I had already failed once. But each time, I remembered my grandfather's belief. He didn't leave me that card because he thought I would be weak. He left it because he trusted I would stand up again. At work, I met people from all walks of life. Some were running from their pasts, others chasing dreams bigger than themselves. Listening to their stories taught me something important. Everyone is fighting a battle you can't see. That realization softened me. I stopped carrying anger like armor. I learned to listen more and judge less. Late at night, loneliness still visited. Silence can be loud when you're alone with your thoughts. I missed my parents, even after everything. Memories don't disappear just because doors close. I wondered if they ever thought about me, if they worried, or if they believed they had done the right thing. Forgiveness didn't come easily, but understanding slowly did. Sometimes people hurt you not because they don't love you, but because they don't know how to love without fear. One evening, I visited my grandfather's old house. It was empty now, waiting to be sold. Dust covered the furniture, but the air still felt familiar. I sat on the floor and talked to him as if he were there. I told him about the bank, about my parents, about my fears. Saying it out loud made it real. I realized how much strength he had given me without ever giving a lecture. As months passed, my life began to take shape. I wasn't rich, and I wasn't famous, but I was stable. More importantly, I was proud of myself. I paid my own bills, earned respect through effort, and learned that independence isn't about money alone, it's about confidence. Eventually, my parents reached out. The message was short, cautious. We met in a neutral place, a quiet cafe. There were tears, awkward pauses, and unfinished sentences. No one apologized perfectly, but something shifted. We saw each other not as enemies, but as flawed people trying to survive their own fears. That meeting didn't fix everything, but it opened a door. Looking back now, I understand that being kicked out wasn't just rejection. It was a harsh push toward growth. Pain forced me to discover parts of myself I would have ignored otherwise. In that old card, it wasn't a miracle, it was a reminder. A reminder that someone once believed my future was worth protecting. Life doesn't always give you what you want. Sometimes it gives you what you need, wrapped in hardship. And if you're lucky, it leaves behind a quiet legacy of faith that shows up exactly when you're about to give up.